RESPECT stand for?
RESPECT stands for Reforming Energy System Planning for Equity and Climate Transformation. It proposes a new framework for how utilities make investments and decisions so that we can build the energy systems necessary at the speed required to address the climate crisis. What inspired Acadia Center to write RESPECT?
Well, the current regulatory system is not leading to the right investments to address climate, environmental justice, and consumer costs. Acadia Center has worked on numerous reports highlighting opportunities for reform to align utility incentives with environmental and consumer solutions like utility vision and incentives for change. But the slow pace of change, the lack of attention to environmental justice, and confusion over the roles of the electric and gas utility are all products of that outdated regulatory system. So RESPECT is an attempt to identify systemic reforms that move beyond the scope of reforms seen to date and really accelerate meaningful progress because the climate's not waiting.
What are the problems that RESPECT is trying to solve?
RESPECT addresses three problems with the utility planning and current regulatory system. One, planning is siloed between electric and gas utilities, which causes overspending, reduced reliability and resilience, and more climate pollution. Two, the utility planning processes ignore equity and environmental justice. And three, utilities have a financial interest in the outcomes of their planning decisions, creating a significant conflict of interest. So RESPECT offers two solutions. One, comprehensive planning. States should conduct all-in energy system planning that considers both supply and demand resources, customers' energy capacity and thermal needs all at the same time, and the climate requirements, environmental justice impacts for all fuels across the state. And second, we need to separate the planners and owners. We need to create statewide planning entities and separate the key roles between the different entities that are best suited to manage them. The new planning entities could look for solutions across utility boundaries and across fuels, which is going to leave the utilities better positioned to focus on business development and aligning their efforts with climate and equity policies.
So, Amy, what do these problems mean for real communities?
Well, let's consider a situation that we might face today. We'd have a low-income neighborhood with two serious problems. First, a gas pipeline has been leaking methane for years. It's a small leak, not enough for the gas company to need to go fix it for safety reasons, but enough to impact health and climate. Separately, the community's electric transformers are aging, causing concerns over power reliability and preventing clean energy investments like rooftop solar, electrification of building heating, or even electrifying the diesel buses that idle at their local stops.
The current regulatory system could lead to a lot of problems for this community. At the end of the day, there is no space under this current regulatory system for a comprehensive look at how the gas and electric systems are interdependent, how clean energy options could replace fossil gas, or what solutions might be best for the community and their needs.
There's definitely got to be a way to do that better. And under RESPECT, I think the solution would work better for consumers and the environment. The state planning entity would proactively identify the neighborhood as a priority for electrification based on its environmental justice characteristics, the age of existing infrastructure, and the potential to reduce emissions. And then the planning entity would talk with the community about what other problems they should solve at the same time. The planning entity would issue a request for proposed solutions, get response from project developers to weatherize and electrify building heating, put in fast chargers for the electric buses, install community rooftop solar and storage, and build new, efficient, all-electric, affordable housing in commercial space. So this combined package could leverage federal tax credits, state efficiency incentives, clean tech grants, affordable housing subsidies, and commercial development investments, and end up costing less to ratepayers than the traditional solutions, but also delivering more to the community. Under RESPECT, who would ensure that the lights and heat stay on?
The streamlined local utility under RESPECT that we're calling the natural monopoly entity would be responsible for dispatching resources and meeting customer demand safely and reliably. Reliability and safety would be one of the key criteria that the planning entity has in terms of its long-term planning, along with equity, environmental justice, and emissions. The RESPECT framework is not proposing a duplication of these efforts. Instead, the planning entity would plan for reliability of their long-term, and the natural monopoly entity would execute on those plans.
So it seems like we're adding a lot of complexity under RESPECT. How would this be a better solution for everyone?
So we believe that the RESPECT framework would lead to better outcomes for everyone. For consumers, we would expect to see a reduction in the overly costly investments that consumers are currently on the hook for. RESPECT would also lead to greater stakeholder input in planning decisions. For environmental justice communities and other voices that have been marginalized in the planning process to date, the priorities and concerns of those groups would be more meaningfully included and addressed through comprehensive independent planning. At the same time, it would explicitly be part of the mandate of the planning entity to consider their viewpoints. So RESPECT is clearly a big, complicated idea. Why do we think that it's worth pursuing?
Well, it is a bold idea, and it does kind of turn on its head a lot of the ways that the utilities and the regulatory system have been operating for the last 100 years. But the climate crisis is a big problem, and we need to meet it with big solutions. And I really think that this idea makes a lot of sense, getting down to the root functions of what the different players within the energy space are doing and assigning them roles that make the most sense for the abilities and skills that they have.
So what does the system look like today, and why do we need to change it?
Well, the system, to be frank, is broken. It gives three really powerful roles to utilities. There's the serving function that we think of, with the poles and wires coming to our homes, businesses, where they get to be a monopoly. There's the planning function, where they get to decide what to build. And then there's the owning function, where they can make significant returns on some of what they build. And at least two of these functions, owning and planning, are in conflict. The same entity that's making money off the investments is the one choosing what to invest in, and whether to build more poles, wires, or even pipes that we might not need, or whether to have more demand response that consumers just do.
So now that we've published RESPECT, what is Acadia Center going to do to push it forward?
I'm really excited for everyone to get to read RESPECT, which you can do by going to our website at acadiacenter.org. But I'm even more excited to get to start talking with folks about how to make this into a reality. I think one of the things that led us to create RESPECT is that there's a lot of voices, mostly of the people who are actually affected by energy policy, who are not getting included in the discussion about how energy policy gets formed and how planning gets done. So one of the things that I really want to start talking with folks about is how to bring in stakeholder voices, especially those who have been marginalized, like environmental justice voices, and how to, co-create a solution that will enable really robust stakeholder input and really good interactions between the planning entity and the communities that it is planning for. So I want to thank you for joining me today to talk about this, Oliver, and for being my co-author. And I also want to thank everybody who's watching. I'm really excited for everyone to go read the report. Let us know what you think.